Welcome, everyone, to our International Women's Day virtual conference. Today, we have an incredible lineup of five inspiring women who will be talking about their experience in the finance and business sector.
This event isn't just about celebrating success, it's about sharing the stories, challenges, and victories that can inspire young women to pursue their leadership roles in these industries. Thank you to both our guests and sponsors for once again making this possible.
Happy International Women's Day, and we hope you enjoy the conference. Hi, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are things in New York?
Well, they're good. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. So, there's the night before had been great, and last night was a little bit more crazy. So, that aside, it's like freezing cold, and I'm losing my mind in the winter with all the kids. And yeah, but the news flow has been great. So every day I wake up and I'm excited to check the headlines to be like, what crazy thing is happening now?
Oh, yes, many hectic things going on right now.
Mhm.
Well, you have such a fascinating job working at CNBC, one of the world's largest business news networks. Can you tell us a little bit about what exactly you do and what a typical day looks like for you?
Sure. So I am host of two shows on CNBC in the afternoon, The Exchange from 1 to 2 p.m. and then Power Lunch from 2 to 3 p.m. I've been doing that combo for about 6 years now. And what's nice is that has kind of coincided with Eric and I having a bunch of kids. So prior to that, I used to do, Closing Bell and an early morning show. But this one now, which is based actually at our headquarters in New Jersey, allows us to live in New Jersey and for me to have a very kind of mom life. So, and thanks to the invention of the iPhone, I can do a lot of work while I'm kind of multitasking and away from the office. So early in the morning, late at night, a lot of the ideas, kind of collaboration happens then that kind of result in by 9 a.m., we have a set idea of what we're going to do on the show. We adjust for news throughout the day. I go in for hair and makeup by, 12 o'clock, and then we're off to the races.
Oh, wow. Okay, so how did you end up working at CNBC and discussing business news? And what exactly was your path to getting there?
I kind of fell into it, but in the way that we all kind of fall into the things that we might be, I don't know, called to do, to sort of put it grandly. But when I was little, I loved performing. Like I would write and direct my own home movies and all this stuff. But throughout the years, I would try theater and it never really clicked, or I would try singing and it never really clicked. And so I was also a big nerd. And by college, I thought, you know what? I'm really a writer. I'm a reader. I'm going to be a print journalism major. I dabbled a little bit with broadcast, but not too much. But I always liked it. It wasn't my primary focus. So I got to the Wall Street Journal out of college. I was lucky enough to land an internship. And that internship turned into a full-time job. And that job, as I just got to know people, they would offer little opportunities like, by the way, would you ever want to take the video camera and go to this book signing around the corner? Okay, sure. Next thing I know, they were launching a live web news show. And they said, do you want to just stand in and host this till we find someone who can do it for real? Yeah, sure. And then I became that person for a couple of years. And ultimately, a couple of people who I knew and was pretty close with at the Wall Street Journal left and went to CNBC. And I stayed in touch with them and was kind of interested in making the jump and learning how to do TV for real, so to speak. It was a big jump. I came in 2012, originally hosting a show based out of London. I had no idea how little I knew and how much I had to learn. So that was a crazy year. And I've been there ever since, going on 13 years now.
So it sounds like you're very passionate about this and have always had an interest in it. What what do you like most about working in the media industry, would you say?
It turns out I just love news. So, the reason I was always attracted to business news is because I didn't grow up with it. So, when I started to learn more about the world of finance and investing in markets, I loved the way that, you might watch, someone's take on an issue and one opinion, but the market would be this incredible machine of like trying to look around the corners and predict the future and price it in now. And it's all about connecting the dots for me. I love like if you take the news flow now on the Russia-Ukraine peace talks that may or may not be happening. And so now you have shares of German steel companies that are rallying because they think power costs might fall because now Russian power might get less expensive. Like, I just love the interconnectedness of all of these things. And it's fun for me both to learn about it and also to try to connect the dots for people who are reading or watching or listening.
Mhm. And now we're told time and time again the importance of having a mentor, especially when you're younger. You talked about how there were many people who kind of helped guide you along the way. Did you have a mentor? And if so, what did that person teach you?
I never had an official mentor, but I had bosses and editors, both directly and people a few levels above me, who I kind of connected with. You know how like you have some conversations with people and you're like, this didn't really go anywhere. I'm not sure we're kind of getting each other.
Mhm.
But then there's other conversations with people you think, well, now this person, we're sort of getting somewhere. So I would say I struck out on a lot of ideas when I was younger, but in raising my hand for some opportunities, I got to meet people who said, you know what, you might not be right for this or that role, but what if you did this other thing? And then I got these opportunities because I was a little bit precocious that I might not have gotten otherwise. And once I realized the people who could actually both teach me and not mind the fact that I needed to learn a lot from them, they weren't annoyed by that. I tried to stay close to them and kind of learn as much as I could. So I have had several key people who are kind of unofficial mentors who I actually keep in touch with to this day. And especially making the move from the Wall Street Journal to CNBC, I did that because there was one person in particular who I deeply trusted and kind of saw the potential in me coming. I'm not sure I would have jumped in, to that situation without a little bit of that reassurance and guidance.
And there's plenty of young girls watching. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
It was that my 20-year-old self knew what I was interested in and that I had to try a lot of different things to figure out what exactly that looked like. So at the time when I was 20, I was doing newspaper journalism, but I would end up going on TV. But then after I got my TV job, I'm now writing a newsletter no one asked me to do. I just like it because it's fun. So I would say build up a lot of skills, get as broad an experience as you can and trust that like what you're interested in, there's going to be a path for you. I was basically interested in business journalism from the time I was a sophomore in college. I had gotten an internship. At the time I was a politics major. I thought I was going to maybe study different languages like Spanish and French. Then I got an internship at Bank of America. And that's where I kind of all of a sudden learned about the world of finance and thought it was fascinating, but I didn't like actually trading. I don't like taking risks like that. But I loved learning about Bloomberg and Reuters and, these guys writing for the Wall Street Journal. And I loved reading The Economist magazine. And I thought, well, that's something I'd really love to do. So I was fortunate to find that early on. But both my husband and I agree that one of the quickest ways to figure out what you're kind of into is to try things that you think you're into. Because sometimes you realize pretty quickly, like, this isn't the right fit. So if I had waited till I graduated to go into finance, quote unquote, and then realized, wait a minute, I don't really like trading, well, then I would have had to go back to journalism school. And so my path into the workforce would have been delayed by a few years. So the sooner you can get, even if you're spent a day, a week, you don't have to be paid. It doesn't have to be official. If you know someone who will let you shadow them, try to just literally get as much exposure as you can to the workplace and different things going on, because it'll help you figure out what you do and don't want to do.
Okay, absolutely. I love that advice. I know it's a little bit different, but even with school, one of the things I loved about second year specifically is taking different electives and realizing maybe this wasn't for me. There's plenty of different things that you could be interested in. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And now you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. You have a career and you're also a mother of five with another on the way. You
Yes.
must be extremely busy. How do you manage it all while still keeping a smile on your face?
So when I was little, I didn't know if I wanted to be like a writer or a CEO, along with the whole TV and performing. Like I had a lot of interests. But it turns out I get to be CEO of my own house, which is both a blessing and also a big job because I'm managing different babysitters coming in and out. My parents live half a mile away now, which is a huge blessing. And so, making sure that we're all on the same page about how they're going to help with activities or different things going on, coordinating with my husband, coordinating with whoever's coming that like today, the toilet broke again. So we have to plumber in the afternoon, but the kids have a concert at school. So we have to make sure that like both of those things can happen at the same time. My daughter has a doctor's appointment. What are we having for dinner? So I'm getting to learn what it's like being a CEO, and it's a tough job. But the kids are super fun, and especially as they get older, I see how watching them experience and learn about the world is going to be fun all over again and kind of reminding me what it was like to be a kid.
Oh, absolutely. And Kelly, what are the skills or characteristics that you think helped make you successful?
You know, so I sort of, as I've been in the workplace longer, I get to see different people's paths. And I think the number one thing is just to find something you're passionate about. And people who are willing to just like go try to like try things and invent products, like it can be hard within the workplace to do things that are entrepreneurial, but it can be easy to be kind of entrepreneurial with your own team, right? Like, hey, what about this idea? Or, I reached out to this person, like just taking the initiative, being a curious person, having a passion for something, and understanding how to help other people be better. Like, what is an outcome that helps all of us feel good about the way we spent our time today? And then how can you go be part of that? Those are all the traits I've noticed amongst people who do very well.
And the media industry has gone through massive disruption with many new digital upstarts competing with traditional television. Where do you see the media industry evolving in the next 5 years?
I wish you could tell me, please. Thank you, because so I try to be pretty active on Instagram as my fallback plan. I could try to be an influencer. It's actually very difficult making all these videos all the time, but it's super fun.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I think a lot of people view the rise of social media as bad, and it has a lot of problems, don't get me wrong. But it's also taught us how to communicate better. So it's taught us how to communicate more pithily, get to the point, write short, all of the things I love and am very passionate about. So in that sense, I actually think it's a good innovation that we can all learn from in the traditional media world. The next thing to contend with, of course, is AI. And I love AI, and my husband and I use it and experiment with it all the time. So I think that in both cases, I'm pretty open and I embrace the technologies because I can't look back at my life or the past, several decades and think, well, you know what? The invention of radio, we should have just ignored that one. Should TV, ignore it. Like this stuff is always changing. And if you want to be successful, you have to adapt and figure out what the audience wants and how to deliver that and how to stay modern and current and up to date while offering, the best information and so forth. So CNBC has these resources that are unmatched for doing live all day long news. It's really, really hard to replace that. So I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to have a lot of different like shifts in business model, a lot of different ways of reaching the customer. I'm glad I don't have to work on those problems. But I think maybe the next 5 years, things look kind of like they do now. 10 or 15 years, who knows?
Yeah. And Kelly, you've interviewed hundreds of people over your career. Are there one or two interviews that really stand out to you?
People ask me this all the time, and the answer is there's really not because um, I don't know. Like, there are certain interviews that are kind of funny, or certain people who are higher status where it might be memorable in that way. But like, my husband has to remind me half the time, like, oh yeah, you interviewed that person. Like, oh, that gold medalist. Don't you remember? Like, they were on the show 5 years ago. I'm like, I honestly don't remember because for me, the satisfaction of the job comes from every single show feeling like we learned something, we were on topic, the guest made points that kind of gave me new information or made me think. So I'm less obsessed with any one particular guest and more just with like every day trying to make sure we have like this really good rotation. And so that's what I tend to remember. I don't really tend to remember any one particular interview that was so this or so that. I tend to just view the whole thing as like an overall experience.
Hey, I feel like that very much ties into the passion of your whole job for sure. And I guess it's kind of along the same wavelength, but if you could interview a dream guest, who would it be if you have one?
There's many. I mean, there's many, many people I would love to interview. The people who I would most love to sit down with right now are always going to be the people who are most impacting history. So the current are like, what are your plans? What are your intentions? Maybe some of the people who are now on the sidelines, but have to plan for what they hope their comeback will look like over the next 4 years. I'd love to talk to them as well. The people who are going to reimagine the Democratic Party, for instance. What does that look like? What are those discussions like? Everyone who's a major money manager, the idea of what they have to put on the line every day and how to pick, a couple of names from from the whole basket of things in the world to do that really well is so incredibly hard. I could talk to them about that forever. I'm super obsessed with Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. If you've never read about them, I can't recommend it enough. Of course, Charlie just passed. So they're always good at those are people that I would love to interview. So it can really run the gamut from, leaders in business and finance, CEOs who are highly effective. Look at the CEO of Microsoft, how he remade that company. Look at the CEO of NVIDIA. I mean, just reading the book about him is incredible to look at what he's done with that organization. It's no accident that they're as successful as they are. So I could probably list 100 people right now, and then 6 months from now, that list might look a little different. So it does evolve over time.
And Kelly, as we wrap up, if there was one final piece of advice you would like to share with young women wanting to enter the media industry, what would it be?
It's a great time to enter. There is an eagerness for new ideas and for energy, for freshness. We always want to stay, kind of young and current. And so if you're entering the workforce, you're going to bring a little bit of that perspective. And just like jump in and like raise your hand. It's amazing to me how I look around and we sometimes have to ask people like, hey, could you do this? Hey, could you do that? It's like, you want to raise your hand, volunteer and say, hey, what if we did this? Or what if we did that? Oh my gosh, amazing. And you'll learn right away from our response, like, okay, well, no, it wouldn't quite be like this. We could try that. And so being proactive, bringing the energy, being who you are, sort of communicating the world through your point of view while being extremely respectful of learning how the corporate world works. I wish I had been a little bit better about that when I entered the workplace, for sure. I think those will really take you far.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate this. We've
Of
definitely
course.
learned a lot from this conversation.
I'm thrilled to be here. I really appreciate you asking.
Hi, Christine. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so looking forward to our conversation and learning about your path to success.
Thanks very
And
much for inviting me.
hmm, so, Christine, you're the head of financial planning at IG Wealth Management. What exactly does that job entail?
Well, for lack of a better term, I'm effectively the chief advice officer. So I report to the CEO, and everyone on my team is focused on ensuring that our advisors have access to the best technology and experts and education to ensure that they're giving the best advice to clients. So everyone on my team is, we have tax accountants and estate lawyers and technology experts, all focused on ensuring that our advisors are giving the best advice.
And that kind of brings me to my next question. What would a typical day look like for you as the head of financial planning?
Well, many of the things that I'm working on relate to our corporate strategy. I did start my career as a tax and estate lawyer, and I eventually came to IG and worked my way up through, my division. But now I'm focused on ensuring that the education that our advisors get is top notch, that they have access to the best resources in terms of research databases. We have partnered with Conquest Technology to create the best in class financial planning software. So we're trying to ensure that everything that gets put out to the field is then properly executed on, and our clients are getting the best advice. So it's a multifaceted sort of thing. I also do a lot of media and public speaking and public awareness, because we do find that there are a lot of Canadians who don't actually fully appreciate what a financial plan even is. And we also want to ensure that our best clients have access to all the various resources that we have, because we're really focused on solving for complexity, and we deal with a lot of business owners and professionals and a lot of complex situations, and we want Canadians to know that that's what we're there for and that's what we're capable of doing, because life can get complex and they need to get the right advice.
Mhm. It sounds like a super rewarding job, like helping people reach their financial security. And I know many people confuse financial planning with portfolio management. So, what exactly is the difference between the two?
I think you've hit on an extremely important point. I think a lot of people, when they think of a financial advisor, they think of someone who's going to help them build their portfolio. And that is an important component of financial planning. And obviously, you want to make sure you're invested in the proper investments. But being a portfolio manager, that would mean you are spending effectively your entire day watching the markets, deciding what to invest in, not invest in, and you're really focused on that component. If for a financial planner, you're going to be spending your days speaking to your clients and, first of all, helping them to identify their goals. So when do you want to retire? Do you have a major purchase? What kind of estate do you anticipate leaving, whether you want to leave it or you need to leave it because you have young children? And we're product agnostic. So we sell investments, we sell insurance, and we have all sorts of credit products, mortgages, et cetera. But it's not like we start with the product. We start by getting to know the client. And it's a comprehensive approach. And we're also focused on tax planning, estate planning, insurance, risk management, cash management. And so we use Conquest technology to help them identify their goals, start with, okay, this is what they want to achieve, then work backwards. How do we get them there? Because if you're just focused on investments, let's say, we actually find that there's a lot of clients who have a significant amount invested. They still don't even know if they can retire. So, they don't have clarity on whether or not the products that they have will meet their needs. So that's the big difference with financial planning. It's very client-centric, and you're actually probably helping them buy a sort of a managed product. It's not that, you'll help them figure out based on their risk portfolio what kind of product, but you're not spending your entire day watching the market. You're spending most of your day speaking to your clients.
Okay, so now that we've clarified and covered the differences, would you say a financial planner spends more time gathering the assets than managing?
Yes. Yes. So they'll spend more of their time speaking to their clients and making sure that their needs are met. And then, it's not even just necessarily about investments as well. They could be, some of our advisors actually they have a lot of high net worth clients, and they've saved enough for retirement. They're focused more on meeting their insurance needs or their credit needs, things like that. So it is more about fitting the right pieces in, as opposed to spending your day figuring out what to invest in.
So correct me if I'm wrong, it's more client focused.
Yes, very client focused.
And speaking of careers in financial planning, what opportunities are available to students at IG if they want to pursue a career in financial planning?
Well, we have a number of internships, and we do encourage people to go to our website and get our email so that you'll see when opportunities might come up. There's internships corporately, but then there's also the ability to work in our region offices on occasion. And I would recommend that if someone's really interested, that they reach out to the local IG Wealth office. We have more than 50 of them across the country, and get to know the local regional vice president, because a lot of our advisors, they're basically independent contractors, they're business people themselves. And so they run their own teams. And so they might need an intern on their team. So we do have interns corporately, and we actually have a bank of advisors, financial advisors who work for IG. Most of them work on our smaller clients because we want to make sure all of our clients are properly serviced. Many of our independent contractors, they deal with very large clients. So it depends on what kind of environment you want to be in, but we definitely have internships, both corporately and with our field. And if you're interested, you should definitely reach out, because many people would want to talk to you, because I do think that, we're dealing with an aging workforce, and there's going to be a big succession of a lot of these, books of business, and they'll be looking for people who are keen to join their team.
Yeah, it's so great to hear that there's like a lot of opportunities for business or for students to be introduced into financial planning. And on a more personal note, what is it that you like most about financial planning?
I think it's the ability to impact someone's, personal circumstances and make sure that they're better off after the discussion that you've had. As I mentioned, I started off as a tax and estate lawyer, and I was dealing with a lot of large corporations. And there's, you can be dealing on some very exciting deals, and there's certainly nothing wrong with investment banking, that sort of thing. But I went through commerce first and then law, and I had a lot of friends who went into investment banking, and they certainly enjoyed it for a while, but it can get very stressful. And I think sometimes people lose their sense of purpose. When you're dealing with individual clients, there's that daily reminder of the impact that you're having. And after your meeting, you can say to yourself, oh my goodness, they came in and they didn't have enough insurance. And if someone passed away, their children would not be in a good situation. So that you are attending to their problems and helping them, meet their dreams. I was just recently speaking with a client, and they said, you know what, we had money, but we just didn't know if what we could or couldn't do. And we booked a trip to Disney World with our family, and we're just so happy, right? And it's stuff like that. It's like, yeah, you were fine, you were good, you just didn't know it. And it's giving them that peace of mind and financial well-being and ability to sleep at night.
Yeah, no, that definitely sounds like a super rewarding job. Like helping people meet their needs and just making sure that they know that they're like financially secure. And hearing that kind of makes me curious. Did you have a mentor when you were starting up in your career? And if so, like what did this person teach you?
My first mentors were when I was practicing law. And I can think of one person in particular who was very instrumental in taking me under his wing. And, he was really focused on the fact that, when you're building your career, your business, it's not just about what's in front of you at that exact moment. It's about making sure that you understand the industry and everything around it. So I joined all sorts of industry groups and I got to meet people, and it's continual education. I'm always enrolled in some sort of course or program or taking things, and that's what keeps it interesting, right? So you're always learning and you're always growing. And I think keep in mind that whatever you do in first year business, don't think, oh, well, that's the end of it. That's all I'm ever going to do, right? Like it's a constant evolution. I would have never actually thought when I went into law that I would be the head of financial planning at a large financial institution. That just wasn't, first of all, there was no such thing as the head of financial planning, but, it just was not what I thought about. But thanks to his mentorship, I did, get out and do a lot of things. And when I was in law, I was building a business. So it was marketing, getting to know people. And then I came to, the people at the time, it's called Investors Group, or now IG Wealth. But I became familiar with what they were doing here, and I was recruited to come to Investors Group at the time, and it's been just an incredibly rewarding experience. So I would encourage people to look beyond what they're just familiar with at that one moment and try and join industry groups and learn more about other opportunities, because even as an industry like financial planning, we are now hiring accountants and lawyers to be financial planners on a regular basis, because, as I said, a lot of it deals with complexity. So we need people who represented business owners and an accounting context, and now they're helping them with financial planning. So you never know what combination of skills is going to be that unique combination that's going to make you very marketable.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that he kind of helped you find your career path into where you are now?
Yes, definitely. When I first started law, I knew I wanted to do corporate and commercial law. I wasn't exactly sure what part of it. He was a tax lawyer, and he took me under his wing, and I did learn a lot about tax from him. But he also, really painted a picture of the importance of estate planning and dealing with, business owners and things like that. And he was very instrumental in showing me the path.
Mhm. And that's super interesting that you mentioned like that you're hiring more like accountants and lawyers. Like I never thought about that. I thought it was just like finance students like would be the pathway. So it's really nice to hear that there's multiple pathways to where you are today. And in terms of like advice, is there any advice that stood out to you that you've been given throughout your career? It could be from like your mentor or anyone else that has really helped you.
I can think of another mentor, again, when I was practicing law, and he said, Christine, if you really want to distinguish yourself, you need to dive into something particular and make yourself an expert in that area. And so I really did try to become an expert in tax and estate planning. I did a lot of public presentations, and I got involved in delivering presentations for the Law Society. And when you start to teach things, you have to become very proficient in it because people are going to ask you questions. And I just volunteered with a lot of organizations that were related to tax and estate planning. And I think that, if you can become really proficient in something, you will become in demand. And that's the key. Like if you're spread too thin, then when you're, trying to apply for things, you want to make sure that you've got that extra something that makes you marketable. Now it's a tough balance, because if you focus on one thing to the exclusion of anything else, then, like you become too focused and it becomes harder as you go up. You want to, my job now, I'm covering a lot more than I used to, right? So you want to be flexible enough to learn new areas. So it's constantly learning. But when you're first starting out, really try and make yourself, indispensable in the job that you're doing, and focus on that. And eventually that will lead to the next rung and the next rung and the next rung. If you're too spread out at the beginning, you're not going to know enough about anything to really get ahead in any particular stream.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think that's super interesting to hear, and it's always nice to hear like how like what shapes a person's success. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And also, what are some skills that you look for when you are hiring a financial planner?
Well, I think it's interesting that we're talking about this in the context of International Women's Day. And, it's ironic to me actually that there's not as many women financial planners as men. And I think that is because of the perception that you're going to spend your day talking about, the markets and stocks and bonds. And so a lot of people come up through the investment world, which fortunately now there's a lot more women doing that, which is great. But it really is about having empathy and being good with people and emotional intelligence and being able to listen. We talk to our advisors, and when we're coaching them, we're like, okay, you need to be interested, not interesting. So we want you to spend your time asking the client questions, not talking about yourself or the product or whatever. That'll come, but you need to learn about the client and get to know, or, what are their issues, what are their concerns. And, there are a lot of women who are fantastic at that. And I think to myself, it's just so, there's such an opportunity for everyone, any gender, regardless, to, take that role on and really become a life coach and listen to your clients and then figure out what's best. And if you're with a firm like IG, where we have a huge shelf of products, investments, insurance, and all sorts of specialists too, like my entire division, we've got people to help you choose those products. So, we'll get you there. The real skill is in that interpersonal relationship. And I'm sorry, but AI is not replacing that.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it'd be so nice to see like more women in the industry. And like you said, I do agree in the fact that I feel like women are more like able to be more personable. So that kind of actually leads me to my next question, which is what do you think is more essential, like the marks or having the passion and the personality?
Passion, 100%. You've got to get up every morning and really enjoy what you're doing. You're going to be doing it for a long time and for a lot of hours in your day. Although I don't want to, scare people. I think some people are able to get, good work-life balance, but you are going to be doing it a lot. And if you don't care about what you're doing, it's just going to come through. And I get out of bed every morning. I'm like, okay, I can't wait to get started. I've got so many things in my head that I want to do. And I know our advisors are all very focused on helping their clients. Obviously, the more intelligent ones are going to be more capable at dealing with complexity and all the things that come around them. But if you enjoy what you're doing and you are surrounded by the right tools and people and technology, there are ways to compensate for some of those weaknesses. But if you don't care, yeah, it's not going to happen.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like especially with this job, like you said, you're helping people. So I think having that personality, being able to connect with them and also the passion is like definitely important. And Christine, as we wrap up, what advice would you give to young women who want to explore a career in financial planning?
I think, it's important to have a good understanding of what all the opportunities are. A lot of people are very focused on when you go into finance, and actually I majored in finance when I was in business, and there's a lot of discussion about investment banking and CFAs. And, we actually have a lot of CFAs on staff too. So there's nothing wrong with being a CFA, or as I said, a CPA. But check out CFP, Certified Financial Planner. You may find that it's got the breadth of topics, and because again, it's not just about investments, it's about tax planning, retirement planning. It's got the breadth of topics that will make it very interesting for a lifelong career. And there's so many opportunities that if you haven't heard about CFP, check that out, because there's a lot of opportunity there.
All right, thank you so much for that piece of advice. I'll definitely look into it. And Christine, I just want to thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I know I learned a lot from our conversation, and I'm sure all the viewers have as well. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for taking the time to interview me and the interest. That's the first step. Just learning more about different types of professions that will serve you well in the future.
Hi, Sarah Jane. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are things in Toronto?
They're great here. Thank you so much for having me, Isabella. I'm really excited to participate today.
Now, before transitioning to human resources, you had a background in law. Can you tell us a bit more about your career journey and how you ended up in your current position?
Sure. I've had a really interesting career path with a lot of twists and turns. I have an undergraduate degree in political studies and a law degree, both from Queen's University, and I am actually not formally trained in human resources. When I graduated from law school, I wasn't 100% sure what area I wanted to practice in, so I was focused on applying for articling positions that would give me exposure to multiple areas of law and that would provide me with an excellent training ground. And I would say that I think that this was a really good decision because it set me up for future success. It gave me the foundational knowledge that I've been able to apply to the various roles I've held since articling, including my human resources role. Um, I was fortunate enough to get an articling position at McCarthy Tetro. And following my articles, I determined that I wanted a career in commercial litigation. After about 5 years of doing that, I realized that I needed a change, that I really wanted to be part of building something rather than getting into the fight when it all falls apart. And so I made the decision at that point to pivot my career, and an opportunity arose at the legal team at Sprott in 2011, and I took it. It was a bit of a change, obviously, because I went from commercial litigation to doing securities, corporate, and employment law, but it allowed me to stretch my skills and learn something new. And, I continued on at Sprott. And in 2017, when there was a split between Sprott and 9 Point Partners, Sprott was looking for someone to take over the HR function. And I put my name in the ring because I was really enjoying the employment law that I was doing. And I thought that it might be a rewarding career path for me within the organization. And I was fortunate enough to be given the position. And I've been able to build out an HR department and program. And it's been super exciting and to take on this challenge and allow me to continue to grow in my career. So while I love law, I'm glad I took the career risk that I did because I think I'm better suited for my current role.
And you kind of touched on this a little bit, but how do you think your legal experience shaped the way you approach HR and talent management?
Yeah, a solid understanding of employment law has obviously been very, very helpful. But in addition to the substantive knowledge that I learned through my legal background, my legal experience has helped me in a number of ways. It's helped me with hone my analytical and critical thinking skills, which I continue to use when I'm resolving a conflict or having to make strategic decisions at the company, or my ability to articulate legal arguments and explain concepts that I gained as a lawyer has been very helpful in HR because HR is often the bridge between the organization and its employees. So the ability to convey something clearly and empathetically is of critical importance. But what I would also want to say is that my legal training can sometimes have a negative impact. And so, for example, I can sometimes focus too much on legal risk when an issue arises, as opposed to taking that hot off and maybe taking a more business approach to the issue that I'm facing. And I think that highlighted something that I've really learned throughout my career path, which is there's no doubt that excellent training in your chosen path is going to be critically important to your future success. But there might be times in your career where you want to take a step back from how you've been trained and to think and revisit the issue from a different perspective, because you at that point might get a better vantage point as to different options moving forward, and it'll put you in a better position to make a really good decision.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I hadn't thought of the different hats you kind of have to put on when approaching an issue. So that's very
Yeah,
fascinating.
one thing I've definitely learned throughout my career is that there's multiple ways of looking at an issue.
And what exactly do you enjoy the most about working in human resources?
100% the people. The most rewarding thing about HR is that I get to support the career growth of our employees and put programming in place that ensures our people can achieve their highest potential. Personally for me, my career is a large part of my self-identity and my personal fulfillment. And I think that a lot of people in professional fields like law and finance would say the same thing. So finding the right fit for you in a career is critically important. And I just love that I have a role in helping that happen for people in my organization.
I love that you mentioned that because I think there's a misconception a lot with business that you prioritize maybe money before people. So it's very cool that in your job you get to kind of prioritize the people
Yeah.
first.
People are our most critical asset of our organization, the intellectual capital that they bring. And so supporting them to do the best work that they possibly can do will bring things like more
Mhm.
money and success and all of that. But you need to support your people to get there.
And again, we all, a lot of the time get told that it's important to have a mentor. So, did you have a mentor? And if so, what lessons did they help teach you?
Yeah, I've had a lot of different mentors throughout my career. I've had mentors in law, in business, and human resources. I mean, frankly, in life, I think that's important too to have mentors in terms of how to sort of balance everything and sort of succeed in your own personal life and what your goals are. And I've been given a lot of great advice along the way. But I think candidly, what I would say is that my mentors were most valuable in their honesty and vulnerability with me. I think that we all have assumptions about the leaders that we look up to. They seem really put together. They seem to have it figured out, and they've got it all going on. And when a mentor was vulnerable with me and admitted that they were, for example, I don't know, nervous giving a speech, or they were struggling with having imposter syndrome, that helped me immensely, because if I was feeling something similar, I knew that that wasn't necessarily a barrier to my success in the future, because I was talking to someone that was in their own right very, very successful, but was having very similar feelings to me earlier on in their career, and frankly, even later on in their career, because I think we all have these feelings of self-doubt as we go along in our journey. So it made me realize that those feelings won't hinder my success, and it normalized the way that I felt, and that allowed me to move forward even despite feeling that way.
And looking back, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Oh, I mean, I have to say, I was like, oh, I have to give my advice to my 20-year-old self. I wish I wasn't that much older, that I really was in that position, but I am. So what would I say? I would say network, network, network. I am from a very small town that had absolutely no connections to Bay Street. And if I'm honest, I didn't even really know what Bay Street was growing up. And so I used to always have my head down and work very hard at everything that I did so that I could succeed and basically get out of that small town. And that was obviously very beneficial in getting myself into law school, securing a great articling position, all of those things. So it's very, very important. But I also wish that I had focused more on building relationships earlier in my career, because as your career progresses, your network becomes so critically important. And a strong network not only opens doors to other potential opportunities, but I think it provides you with an invaluable support system of mentors, like we just talked about, peers and colleagues who can offer you advice, feedback, and encourage you throughout your career, because we're all going to have sort of, ups and downs, and having that good support circle around us is very important.
That's amazing. And as someone responsible for hiring many people and reviewing numerous resumes, what specific qualities or factors do you think are most important? What tends to stand out to you and make someone the best candidate?
We're often hiring people that are sort of 5 to 10 years into their career. And while we are looking, obviously, to see demonstrated academic achievement as well as professional achievement in their career, we will get a lot of candidates for a role that will check all the boxes of the technical skills and academic requirements that we're looking for. So then we're looking at what sets those candidates apart. And then it becomes a matter of them demonstrating to us that they have the right passion and drive, and, like, as I like to say, get up and go for the role, that they're self-driven, that they, want to succeed, and they want to do the best that they can in their position. And so being able to see that being demonstrated, whether it's in volunteer opportunities that they've taken or career accomplishments that they've had, and frankly, just the way in which they express their career accomplishments, and frankly, setbacks too, and being honest about those setbacks, because we all make mistakes and have setbacks, and it's what you do with them that's the most important, that I think is something that we're looking for. The other piece would be emotional intelligence, and making sure, that we are identifying candidates that are exhibiting really good EQ, because I think you can be technically strong, and if you don't have good emotional intelligence, it can be very difficult to adapt to situations and be responsive in a way that gets you to the end point that you want to be. So, having exhibited that type of skill is also very important.
And what skills or characteristics have been most important to your success in human resources?
I'm going to go back to EQ again. In addition to the analytical, critical thinking, and communication skills that I mentioned to you earlier, I think the most important soft skill to success is emotional intelligence, or EQ. The ability to manage your own emotions as well as those of others is important to HR. We have to remember that EQ is not a one-way street. You need to know about how you're reacting to a situation as well as how someone else is reacting to that situation and adapt accordingly. This helps you build strong relationships. It helps you handle sensitive situations with care. And I would also argue that, similar to my prior response, that EQ is important in all professional careers. We look at this for all types of positions. It doesn't always come naturally, but I think if it doesn't come naturally to you, there are a lot of tools and resources out there to help you develop and strengthen your EQ. And I think that it's just an invaluable skill that we all need to focus on.
That's great advice. And as we wrap up, if you could share one final piece of advice with young women aspiring to build a career in HR or law or asset management, what would it be?
If I think back to my career so far, I think the advice that I would provide is to take off the blinders. Don't be so hyper-focused on the career that you think that you want that you might miss the opportunities around you that will present themselves. I think that I took my blinders off earlier on in my career, and it led to a very rewarding career in a field that, frankly, I would never have predicted that I would have been in when I graduated from law school. But it's been incredibly rewarding. And so being able to take those opportunities as they come and to roll with it, in a strategic way, making sure it's something you want to do, I think is critically important. And I think I would also add to that without compromising yourself, is don't say no to opportunities that come your way. It's a cliche, but if it scares you, it's probably worth doing.
Well, this was amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Hi, Yasmin. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to talk about your career and your position as the region head of financial planning at TD.
I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And so you are the region head of financial planning at TD. What exactly does that job entail?
Yeah, absolutely. So my role as region head at TD Wealth Financial Planning, first of all, it's a super rewarding job. I'll start with my territory. It's all over the Greater Toronto area. And on my team, I have 11 dedicated managers, and we oversee over 200 financial planners who service the clients in this area. Really, like this team's mission is to just help clients discover and achieve what matters to them, and really helping them build financial confidence and making sure that they can achieve their dreams and goals throughout their lifetimes.
Yeah, it sounds like a very rewarding job, like helping people get to their financial security. And what would a typical day for you look like?
Maybe before I get into what each day entails or what each week entails, maybe I'll kind of paint the picture first with what makes it so dynamic. What are some of the priorities when you're a wealth leader, no matter where you are? So the 5 things that I anchor myself on every day, one would be vision. And so as a leader of a very large team, my team are my clients. When you think about it that way, I have a huge responsibility to set the tone for the team. We always have to keep the future in mind. And it's not just about growing your business and adding new, revenues, but there's a lot there about culture and what actions you take to make the decisions that you're doing. So let's start with that vision piece. The second bucket is around business development. And I think that's where people really think a lot of our time is spent. Every person on this team is executing on a business plan. They're driving acquisition, they're doing business practices, they're leading disciplines across their team just to make sure we're able to get the outcomes that we want. The third one is community. And Sophia, that's where we met, right? And so, intentionally being able to be out there in the community and meeting centers of influences and getting that further reach for not just your brand, but I don't know, whenever I go out, I always meet somebody new and we always stay in touch. And so we really encourage that. The fourth one is clients. Um, Hearing the voice of the field and the clients is so important to know where to take the business. And so as a leader, you really got to bring that up always and wherever you are. And then risk management. I mean, we work in a bank, wealth, finance. We're all risk managers when you do this type of work. And so there's a lot of compliance and processes and controls. And so hopefully that helps with kind of the 5 buckets, because that's what I wake up every day and I think about. So when you asked me about typical day or week, I mean, when you're leading such a large team, I look at it more at a month or a quarter. And if you know anything about wealth management, there's different seasons, there's predictability depending on what's happening in that time. And so there's the piece where you can plan proactively, where the teams know what to expect. So coaching sessions booked, pipeline calls booked, that sort of thing. Then there's leadership meetings where we come together and share ideas, whether that be with corporate or with our teams as well, different strategies. There's partner meetings. You think about all the partners we need to be able to bring everything to life for our clients. You got to have your pulse on many different people. So that's very intentional. And then, lastly, like being agile and being able to react to whatever happens that day. No day is the same. And so you always have to have that white space for whatever might come up in a given week. So hopefully that kind of helps you see what we do. The calendar is very busy, but it's a very proactive calendar, I would say.
Yeah, no, that definitely helps explain everything. I like how you sort it into like the 5 buckets. I think that was very helpful. And it's kind of nice that every day is a bit different. So it keeps things interesting, I bet. And in terms of like your clients, I know you're talking about clients. How do financial planners at TD get their clients? Do you guys hold events or do they come from the bank?
So there's many different ways. And what I would say the one benefit we have here at TD Wealth is that we're very tied in with our one TD. And so what that means, it's our retail branches. And so when financial planners start out, they are connected with a retail branch and they do sit in there and they are a partner. And so they do get referrals from there. The other element, though, that's an always on muscle that people are continuing to build is that self-sourcing capability. It's that business development, being able to, get out in the community, do certain events that are very intentional, choosing a segment, maybe a passion project of yours. It could be women, it could be the Chinese segment. It could be really anything out there in the community, and really going after it and just creating these rinse, repeat routines to build relationships and build a pipeline. And that's really how it works here. You got to kind of have both. You got to have all kinds of ways to find the new business and make the new introduction.
So would you say it's kind of like personable, like it depends on the person, how they bring in their clients. It's kind of based on like their passion and stuff like that, their interests?
It could be. So when we think about the business plan, I mean, what I see the planners do is they know that a lot of it will come from the enterprise that you're with, right? There's usually a mechanism there that attracts the clients, whether it be the brand of TD that will kind of get their foot in the door. Those are kind of the easy ones. They're nice, warm referrals. But I encourage every planner on my team to look at that niche of what's going to be that thing that gets them up to find. It's a bit harder. We're not necessarily calling a blank phone book, and just, cold calling, but it's finding ways to, you're right, like build relationships and find your way in. And it's got to be something that's a passion, but it doesn't come easy to everyone. Not everyone likes to enter a room and get to know and make it lead to that hot pipeline, referral. So it can take time. And so we do have training that we do around that to help people grow that muscle over the course of their careers.
That's really interesting. And in terms of, I know I get confused with like being a financial advisor and a financial planner. Are you able to kind of distinguish the two?
Well, I can speak here for TD. So financial advisors, they work in the branches. So they work on the retail side. And in our world, they're under the MFDA umbrella. And so they need to get their IFIC license. They are able to sell mutual funds, but they also do a lot of real estate lending and all the products that a retail bank would have. A financial planner here at TD, we are zero licensed under that umbrella. And it's a more holistic approach. We do very holistic financial plans for clients. Typically, it's a career destination job where you do it for a long, long time. And you follow these clients along through their whole journeys, right? And so the licensing is part of it. I'd probably kind of separate it that way.
And that kind of also brings me into my next question. What designations do you need in order to become a financial planner at TD?
Okay, so from a designation perspective, you need to start with your CSE, so your Canadian Securities course, your CPH, you need your WME, and you also need your CFP eventually. So, and then from there, there's a ton of CE credits you got to do every year to keep things up. And actually, recently, we've embarked on the journey of getting insurance licensed as well. And so that's something that can come later in your journey as well, to be able to do insurance policies for our clients.
And how long do those designations usually take?
Well, we give 3 years to get your CFP. So when you enter, you need to have your CSE in advance, and then you do the rest of it within the first kind of 90 days. And then you do your WME. I think it's about 2 years, but you need to have the CFP by year 3.
And as the head of financial planning, are you in charge of hiring? And if so, what are some skills that you look for when you're hiring a financial planner at TD?
Yeah, I'm really involved in the hiring process. I love meeting candidates at the end of the journey and before they come in to here, because I think it's really important for candidates to be able to ask any final questions when they're deciding where to start their practice. And plus, I do have to hit my targets for hiring plans when it comes to my business plan. But when I think about what a financial planner needs to be in this day and age, and it's always changing, there's some areas that I anchor into. Number one is really strong people skills, customer service. Entrepreneurial mindset would be one. And so, yes, it's a bank. Yes, you come in, you have a pension and all that. But it's probably the closest thing to being an entrepreneur working for a big organization that you can find, because you have to be able to grow and get up every day and do the job over and over. Strong interest in the economy and geopolitical events. And so if you look at what you look at every day on, your Instagram or on your socials, if you're drawn to understanding what's happening, that's probably a good thing, because it's what you're going to be talking about a lot with clients when they're asking what's happening in the world. And you see our world today, it's constantly evolving. And then a deep knowledge of investment management, tax planning, that sort of thing. And you get a lot of that from your CSI courses and the CFP, of course, and the theory, but it's that ability to kind of apply hard concepts into layman's terms for everyday people and make it interesting so that you can give that holistic advice and people keep coming to you to get more products and get more advice from you. But really, when I read our comments from clients, the way they see us, you're a relationship manager. You are the person where they have the direct phone to you. There's no IVR. There's no buttons to press. It's I'm going to call Sophia and she's going to help me navigate this huge bank. And that's what they do. And there's a higher calling for sure. I always look at that. And the last question I ask myself when I'm meeting with somebody and deciding if they're going to join our team is, would I trust this person with my parents, or would I send my best friend to them and know that they would have a really rewarding relationship and they would always do what's right and integrous? The work we do is a higher calling. There's a lot of trust involved. And we need to be sure we're kind of looking at that long-term piece when it comes to dealing with people.
Yeah, it sounds like a job where you have to be super passionate passionate about what you're doing, especially because if you need to know all that information and you're giving it to clients who trust you. So that kind of leads me to my next question on what you think is more important, like passion and personality or marks and academic accelerations.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you're talking just in wealth management or particular the financial planning role?
I would say both.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe we can start with just talking a little bit about the different jobs in
Mhm.
wealth. The fact is there's a huge wide array of roles. So where I work in distribution, is one area, and that's directly with the field. But then there's a lot of corporate roles that are highly analytical. We think about people that are actually making decisions on what these managed solutions are going to entail and what's happening and what are we going to do. Um, you need to have both, but some definitely need CFA and that sort of thing, right? Um, in my mind, as a leader in hiring people, my personal my personal view is that no matter what the job is, you need to have the soft skills to make a team great and to be able to work together with partners. And so that's almost like a non-negotiable. So that personality, soft skills, a willingness to learn how to leverage those skills, right? And then the academic achievements are kind of like the baseline. Like you need to have certain things, but I guess the world is changing so fast. And so I like to kind of bucket it into, does this person have a growth mindset? Are they constantly curious and trying to learn what the next thing is, no matter what? And you don't rest on your laurels and just stay still. And so anyone can look at themselves and just look up growth mindset and say, yeah, I'm that person. Or maybe, oh, no, I anchor here too long and I'm not good with change. So you know what? At the end of the day, we're a regulated business. We need the credentials, you know, but some people don't look at us because they have a lot of exams to do. They turn away from it. It's intimidating. But you know what? If you just go into the CSI website and FP Canada, you can kind of look at the pathways there and see where could this lead to in a career in wealth management. So for example, like right now, even for me, like I've done all the courses over my years. I don't really use them anymore because I lead people, but I'm really curious about the PDO. That's the Partners and Directors and Senior Officers course. It's understanding things as a broader perspective. It's a always on kind of learning. And I have a couple of leaders on my team who don't even need their CFP, but they did it because they want to be in the trenches with their people and they just want to know. So I would say personality, academic, you need both, but there's that sweet sauce. There's that special something of someone that's willing to grow and be curious all the time.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you bring up like curiosity and like I feel like always wanting to learn more and like be better, I guess, which definitely stands out and probably puts you at like a better or puts you like above a lot of other people. And in terms of like the wealth management sector, it has changed a lot in recent years. What trends have you've seen within the wealth management sector?
Yeah, so this one, it's constantly evolving. Like I said, the industry is massive and it's really important for our economy, for our clients, and just to, in so many different ways. There's a few things that come to mind. And so I'll start with technology and how humans kind of work together. We think of AI, machine learning, and bots and voice technology. There's so much of this that we use, but there's so little of it that we use. So, for example, our back offices, they use processes on how we gather data. There's a lot of bots that work there to kind of help speed up efficiency. Um, but I think we do have a lot of work to do here to keep up the pace and learn how to incorporate it to make us more efficient. There's a lot of talk about how do we incorporate this in a safe manner within, the wealth spaces so that, say a financial planner today, they have, say, 250 clients, for example. If we made their lives easier with, more AI and fast text writing and writing, they're doing their charting notes, could they then handle more clients because they wouldn't be typing away, right? That would be one example. The second one is generational wealth transfer. Uh, I heard a stat recently that, you know what, the next 8 years are going to be very exciting for the wealth industry. There is a massive amount of assets kind of passing hands, as you know, and younger clients are kind of looking for those easier digital interactions, right? Um, but there's also, you know, this point where they're looking to their parents to say, hey, like, what did you do with your money, you know? And how am I going to be responsible? And so there was definitely an element of tailored advice. So it's really important for our financial planners or anybody in this industry to make sure that you're looking at that intergenerational understanding of who. And I see some of my planners, like we'll have events and they'll have 4 generations at one table. And it's amazing just to see how that planner who's been doing this for so long, there's a baby there and they're all connected. And you just think about the peace of mind that happens with that. But that's a very interesting kind of thing for the next 8 years. And anyone starting out in this career now, I think it's a very exciting time. And then lastly, I would say shifts in investment strategies. So investors are looking for different solutions. Like you see the commercials, you see what they're, you know, seeking out, and ways to diversify their hard-earned money. And so I'll give you an example. Real assets is something that clients are seeking in the mass affluent space. So they want a piece of the pie when it comes to wind farms or hotels or like, and so we do have a product that actually gives you a piece of the pie in real assets. And it's a great way to diversify. So those kind of products are becoming more common. And our TD asset management team are phenomenal. They're always at the forefront creating solutions for the industry. But bottom line, like, you know what, when I think about embracing innovation, we just got to stay ahead of the competitive landscape. But one thing that I was telling my team, because you can think of this and be like, oh my gosh, are the robots going to take over? Like, what's going to happen? I'm choosing this career for the long run, you know. I would say I see the financial planner role very similar to like a doctor, where that person, that trusted person, that human will be a really, really important piece. As people go through the ups and downs of life, life is hard. The world is ever changing, and to have that name as somebody that you can call and trust to navigate it all won't go away. It may look a little different, might be a little bit more efficient, but I don't see that going away. As having being a wealth professional and choosing that career.
Yeah, well, it's definitely interesting to see how AI is like changing the way that we like see everything as it is. But yeah, no, I definitely agree. I feel like there's like a personable side that AI just can't take over. And in terms of misconceptions within the finance industry, what do you think the biggest misconception people have about working in finance or wealth management?
The one that comes to mind is that you need to be a math genius, or that you're going to be constantly looking at spreadsheets and charts all day long. You know, sure, there's jobs like that where there's a lot of that. Um, but I haven't experienced that. I spent a lot of years in direct investing. I spent a lot of years in financial planning, and a lot of other jobs across the bank. And it really is a people business. Those things matter, but the IQ and the EQ, it's your presence, it's how you show up, it's how you build trust. So I just want everyone to know that there's all kinds of walks of life here in finance, people from a whole different types of backgrounds, but don't discount a lot of the jobs that you've done in your, you know, early years. Customer service, like it's all about the client, and working in teams. There's a lot of transferable skills. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like in that sense, a lot of people think that, like you were saying, it's just numbers, which is really interesting. So it's nice to hear that people who aren't so good at math or numbers still have like a possibility to go into the finance route as well. And then, Yasmin, as we wrap up, what advice would you give to young women who want to explore a career in financial planning?
Well, I think you should be giving them that advice. No, I'm kidding. Because you know what? I really admire you and how you put yourself out there and seek out mentors, and are always so curious. But I would say to narrow it down is the concept of just ask.
Mhm.
And I use this mantra in my everyday, because whenever you have that feeling of maybe being, nervous to approach somebody or to send that email or to ask for that sale, like it applies to everything. And so it's just don't be afraid to ask, and you'd be surprised where it leads you. That'd be my advice.
Well, it's really good advice. So thank you for
Mhm.
that. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I know I learned a lot from our conversation. I'm sure all the viewers have as well. So thank you so much.
No, you're welcome, and thank you. And I really appreciate you having me today. And have an awesome day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Malin. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are things in New York?
Things are great in New York. Sun is shining and it feels like the first day of spring.
Amazing. I know, very exciting. So, Norges Bank oversees the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world, managing over $1.8 trillion. Can you share a brief history of the fund and what sets it apart from others?
So it goes back to 1969, where Norway found one of the largest offshore oil fields in the world. And when you realize how big it was and how big it was going to be, some very wise Norwegian politicians established the fund in 1990 with the idea of taking Norway's oil wealth and transforming it into financial wealth for the future generations of Norwegians. And I think what's distinguished the fund is its unique approach. So we invest exclusively outside of Norway, and own approximately 1.5% of all the listed companies globally. And we have a very disciplined spending rule. So the government can spend up to about 3% of the fund's value every year. We also have a very strict ethical framework for what we can invest in, and we're very transparent on what we do. So this year we actually won the prize as the most transparent sovereign wealth fund in the world.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that. One thing that I really admire about Norges is that it places, as you mentioned, a strong emphasis on transparency with the Norwegian public, ensuring that citizens, as you said, understand how the fund is managed. So, why is transparency so essential to the fund's mission? And what impact do you think it has on public trust and long-term stability?
So it's really important for our mission because we are managing the wealth of the Norwegian people. So they are our client. We have one client and 5 million clients. So it's essential that they have trust in us. And the more they know about us, the more they trust us. So it impacts what we do. So transparency is more than just publishing reports. So it's about like creating an understanding for our investment approach, our decisions. I think it drives accountability across the organization. It makes you be more thoughtful in your decision making, clear in your communication. And I think ultimately that probably leads to better outcomes.
And can you tell us about your role as co-chief investment officer for asset strategies and what a typical day looks like for you?
So we actually recently changed names to market strategies, which I think is a good explanation of what we do. We are at the heart of the fund, I would say. So we are the department that manages the inflow of money. We allocate it across markets, sectors, regions. We implement it in the market, and we take care of the broad fixed income and equity portfolios. And well, while we take care of the market exposure, we're also trying to generate excess return on those portfolios through relative value strategies or some macro strategies. So as far as my day is, it usually starts pretty early, and for two reasons, I would say. First is I have small kids, so they tend to wake up very early and wake everyone else up. And also because I'm currently based in New York, and while we have a big office here and we have a lot of money in New York, it's most activities are run out of Oslo. So I try to get the most out of those early hours and the overlap with Oslo. So that means a lot of meetings in the morning. But what I do love about my role is that it's really varied. So it covers everything from discussing markets, it's working with our teams on trading efficiency, new technology developments. So it covers a big span of tasks.
That is very exciting. Constantly keeping things, yeah, as you said, on the go. So your career at Norges began in 2009 as a systems analyst. Could you share the path that led you to your current position?
Yeah, so as you said, I've been here for over 15 years, which sounds like a long time, and I did not think I was going to be here 15 years later, but I studied industrial engineering. So to be honest, finance was not really what I was interested in or where I thought I was going to be working. But then the financial crisis hit in my final years of studies. So it had such a big impact on everything. So then suddenly I became interested in finance because you saw how it could impact the world we live in. So it wasn't really that easy to get a job as a graduate during the financial crisis. So the, I ended up at MBML by accident, as you said, in a role as a system manager. And I really liked it. I liked it in Norway, in finance, in this role. So after a few years in technology, I applied for a role in trading. And sometime later, I got the opportunity to move to New York. And then my job for the next 4 or 5 years was to trade our fixed income portfolio from New York. And then towards the end of my time here, I got the chance to take up the role as head of our emerging market debt trading team. That was my first management position. And I moved back to Oslo. Well, COVID hit, I had a baby, we had a new CEO, there was a lot of things happening. So, but shortly thereafter, I took up the role as global head of our fixed income trading team. And finally, 2 years ago, I took up this role that I have today. So, as chief of our market strategies department. So, I've been in the same place for 15 years, but it's been far from static during that time.
I love hearing that because I think it's very encouraging to hear that you don't necessarily go the way you originally planned, but you definitely end up in the right place. So that's amazing. And what would you say you enjoy the most about working in the finance or investment industry?
So it is a really interesting industry because there are never 2 days that are the same, and you can't really predict what's going to happen. I think these last few weeks is a good example of that. You come in, you wake up every morning and you say, okay, wow, this has happened, and then you have to react to it. So just trying to understand what's going on. It's very intellectually stimulating, and you have to be on top of what's going on everywhere. Everything can impact the market. And the market trades on fundamental information. It also trades on psychology. Like what are people, this is happening. What are people thinking about it? What are people thinking about? What are people are thinking about it? So to be really good at this, it also requires you to combine the technical fundamental aspects and the psychological aspects in your thinking. And that's what I really liked about trading in my time as a trader and about the investment.
That's a great point because, as you were saying, there's a lot going on right now. It's very important to definitely stay up to date with current trends because that can definitely influence the market. Now, did you have a mentor during your career? And if so, what lessons did they impart?
So I haven't had a mentor until very recently, but I've been surrounded by often much more senior colleagues who have been great, teaching me everything I know, more or less. And I've also been very lucky with having managers who have believed in me and pushed me to take the next step, even when I maybe did not want to do it or didn't think I was ready for it. And I think it's important to have those people around you.
Now, there's plenty of young girls watching. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self, knowing what you know now?
So I have a few advice that are probably all somewhat linked together. And the first advice I would give is to say yes to opportunities. And that's because women, including myself, are often underestimating our own abilities and tend to self-censor and don't reach as far as we could, or don't apply for this or that job because we don't think we would be able to do it. So I think you should wait and feel that you're fully ready for the new challenge. It is okay to not know everything and learn as you go, and it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I think that's okay, and that's how you grow. And the second one is to keep your mind open to different opportunities. So, as I was alluding to, I never planned or thought I would end up moving to Norway or working in finance or be here 15 years later. So just be open for opportunities that may arise. And that leads me to my third advice, and that's to do the best at the job that you have. So it may not be what you picture for yourself or your dream job at the time, but if you do that, that's the job that you have. And if you do a good job, there will be opportunities, and then be ready to take them. So like takes me back to advice number one. So yeah.
No, those are amazing points, and I definitely resonate with that. I think a lot of women specifically aim for perfection rather than just aiming for our best, and that can definitely restrict what we say, because we don't want to say anything unless it's perfect. So I definitely, yeah. Now, I recently read that the number of CFA registrations has declined in recent years. Do you believe that obtaining a CFA is still as important or necessary for professionals in the industry?
I think it depends completely on what your background is. So I came from an engineering background, and I never had a lot of finance topics in school. So I knew how to do the math behind this, calculating the risk of these derivatives, but I didn't really know basic finance. So for me, it was very useful because it gave me that understanding of finance. I think if you had that in school and you are more familiar with that, maybe you don't need that degree. So I think it depends a lot on what your background is.
Okay. And to kind of tie into this, what do you think is more valuable? Having a really great personality and passion for what you're doing, or academic success?
I think academic success can help you get to the job that you want, or get that kind of entry point. But ultimately, when you have the job, it is of course about doing a good job, and you do that through some of the same things that gave you academic success. But it's also about just having that mindset of working hard and helping others, and more about attitude in a way, than pure academics or so I think that's something. It's not always the people with the highest grades that do the best in a job. Far from it.
Okay. Yeah, so that definitely kind of ties into your advice of putting your hand up, being curious, and open to new experiences more so.
Mm.
And what skills or characteristics do you believe have been pivotal to your success?
So it's much of what I said before. I think it's focusing on doing the best you can in the role that you do have, and hopefully you're also lucky to be surrounded by people who do believe in you and who can push you to take that next step, and kind of there to do that. And I also wouldn't be too hung up in having the perfect career plan. Sometimes the best opportunities are the ones that you didn't really see coming. And I think in terms of to be more concrete in terms of skills, I would say these days is to learn how to use technology, because that's only going to become more and more important, and it's going to be required for every job out there. Even jobs that previously had nothing to do with technology, I think will will require that skill going forward.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even the use of AI in the past few years has completely increased.
Yeah.
Anyone saw that coming. So, yeah, that's a great point. And as we conclude, what final piece of advice would you offer to young women aspiring to enter the investment industry?
So I think I've given a lot of my best advice. So I'm just to say a final few words. I don't think you should be scared of by the perception of finance as being very male dominated, high testosterone industry. It is really fun. It's very intellectually stimulating, and it has a huge impact on the world, on everyone's life. So, and there's so many different jobs that you can do in finance, and so it's not just that this is what it's going to look like, but it's a very important industry, and I think it's really important that women are represented in the finance industry.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think Norges does a great job of that, of showing that, investment can have an impact on future generations, which is an incredible thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what makes it feel meaningful as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a very insightful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.